Hello everyone, it's time to learn English with Fyana. Hello everyone, hope you all are fine there. Welcome back to my channel. Now I'm going to deliver discussions about assessing speaking. This term involves to a language assessment. For teachers or people who conscious in teaching, they are familiar with these discussions. Why I say that, I assume that teacher will use an assessment proposed to know students' performance. By doing assessment, they are able to consider what way to invite students understand more about the lesson, so that finally they will obtain a good achievement. Briefly, teacher can know the student's skill level by giving them assessment. In this opportunity, I'd like to deliver exclusively about basic type of speaking and then how we can design speaking assessment, how the criteria of speaking that should be assessed, kind of speaking assessment for each types of speaking, and then the example of how the scores level for each assessment, and then at least they are all will be the discussions of my speaking now. For your information guys, in speaking assessment we have challenge. What are the challenges? There are two challenges here. First, speaking and listening is integrated, and second, the designs of elicitation techniques. First, I'd like to speak about speaking and listening are integrated each other. Why it becomes challenge? Now I'm trying to make sense. The two aspects, listenings and speakings, are interrelated. Isolating oral skills without direct involvement of oral comprehensions is very difficult. Only in limited context is oral skills because they are able to be assessed without oral participations. These talks include monologues, speech, telling story, and etc. No speaking talks is capable of isolating the skills of oral productions, single skills. There are five at least basic types of speaking that are to be assessed. These four types are imitative, intensive, responsive, interactive, and extensive. Assessments become more open-ended and therefore a greater challenge for uh, proficiency levels that become increased. Now I'm going to talk about basic types of speaking assessment. As another skill, speaking also have basic types. There are five kinds of basic types of speaking. What are they? They are imitative, intensive, responsive, interactive, and extensive. All of them have own criteria on how speaking which will be assessed. As teachers who want to make assessment of students of speaking skill, they have to understand these basic types of speaking so that the purpose of their speaking assessment will be well organized. Okay, continue to the basic types of speaking assessment. Here I begin to talk about imitative speaking. Imitative is simply the ability of parrot back a word or phrase or a sentence. The term about parrot back here refers to illustrate the imitative speaking seems like to be. The illustration is from parrot bird. We know that the ability of this bird is good in imitating people speaking. In this case, parrot back is how the speaking skills of imitative. In imitative speaking, word, phrase, and a sentence will be the criteria to be imitated. In imitative speaking is purely use phonetic level of oral productions, a number of prosodic, lexical, and grammatical properties of language. These terms are included in the criterion of performance. The performance here refers to the performance of the test takers. The test takers is the people who are assessed in this case. In imitative speaking, is interested only in what is traditionally labeled as pronunciations. There is no inference are made about the test taker's ability to understand or convey meaning or to participate in an interactive conversations. The only rule of listening here is in the short-term storage of a prompt just long enough to allow the speaker to retain the stored stacks of language that must be imitated. The second basic type of speaking is intensive speaking. Intensive is the productions of short stretch of oral language. In intensive speaking, is frequently employed in assessment context is the productions of short stretch of oral language that designed to demonstrate competence in a narrow band of grammatical, phrasal, lexical, or phonological relationship, such as prosodic lemons, intonations, stress, rhythm structure. The speaker have to be aware of semantic properties in order to able to give a response, but the interactions with an intercalator or task administrator is a minimal of at the task. For example, intensive assessment tasks include direct response tasks, reading aloud, sentence and dialogue completions, limited picture cue, and etc. The next basic types of speaking is responsive speaking. In responsive speaking, the tasks include interactions and task comprehensions. However, the level of interactions and task comprehension here is at the limited level. For example, the conversations. We use short conversations in responsive speaking, and then standard greetings, and then small talk, requests, and comments. The sample of responsive speaking, there will be any two speakers, for example, Mary and Doug. There is a conversations or short conversations within two speaker, Mary and Doug. Mary say, "Excuse me, do you have the time or do you have any time?" Doug answer, "Yeah, 9:15." This is kind of short conversations that include in responsive speaking or in responsive speaking tasks. The next type is interactive speaking. Actually, within responsive and interactive speaking seems like closely similar. However, there are differences in level. The difference between responsive and interactive speaking is in the length and complexity of interactions, which sometimes includes multiple exchanges and or multiple participations. In interactive speaking, the interactions can take the two forms of transactional language, which has the purpose of exchange specific informations or interpersonal exchange, which have the purpose of maintaining social relationship. In the three dialogue, there will be any three speakers, A, B, and C. In the above or the previous sample, we know in the responsive speaking, there is just any two persons in short conversations. However, in interactive speaking, there will be additional persons or and the speaker C was interpersonal. In interpersonal exchange, oral productions can become pragmatically complex with the need of speaking in a casual register and use colloquial language, ellipse, slang, humor, and other social linguistic conventions. So, briefly, in interactive speaking, the level of conversations or the level of test talks here, the conversation will be more interactive or more specifically because or due to the fact that there will be any slang, there will be any humor and other social linguistic convention. The last type is extensive speaking, or we can call it as monologue to make it sense. Extensive is oral production tasks that include speech, oral presentations, and storytelling, during which the opportunity for oral interactions from the listeners is either in highly limited, yeah, or ruled out altogether. Here, the fact language style is frequently more deliberative and formal for extensive tasks. So, the use of language here is frequently more formal in tasks of extensive. But we cannot rule out for certain informal monologues such as casually delivered. Then I'm going to talk about micro and macro of speaking. In all language skills have criteria divided into macro and micro, as well as speaking assessment. It's mentioned several criteria that are measured. The criteria are divided into narrower or smaller levels, namely micro skills, and the one that are more complex, namely macro skills. Then the macro skills here refer to producing the smaller chunks of language, such as phonemes, morphemes, words, collocations, and phrasal units. While the macro skills imply the speaker's focus on the larger elements such as fluency, discourse, functions, style, cohesions, nonverbal communication, and strategic option. Look at the sample of micro skills and macro skills in describing the level. The first one, micro skills. In micro skill, here, the speaking assessment is how produce English stress patterns, words in stress and unstressed positions, rhythmic structure, and intonations contours. While in the macro skills level, the use of speaking skills is more than micro skills in a level. In macro skill, it use appropriate styles, register, pragmatic conventions, interrupting, and etc. Continue to the next discussion. As I have told you that I'll deliver how speaking assessment is designed. The design proposed to make the creator of assessment that organize well what should be assessed by considering the criteria of speaking level. First, we'll design two imitative speaking. The first one of the example of imitative speaking tasks here, the first is word repetition tasks. As we notice from the word repetitions, we know that the activity of repetitions is about the actions of repeating something that has already been said or written. Now look at the sample there. There is the directions that mentions as the test takers will hear some word as the stimulus for them to repeat. So the kind of stimulus there probably a spoken stimulus. be like teacher will say, please, students, repeat after me. And the words to repeat be like beat, and the test takers or the student will repeat the stimulus from the teachers. When teachers say, repeat after me, beat. So the test takers or the students here will repeat the word beat. Bad, bad. I bought a boat yesterday. And the activity be like repetition task is just repeat after the teachers in saying words. This is kind of word repetition task. In designing imitative speaking tasks, it will be scoring level that mentions there in the above. There are three kinds of scoring scales, such as level 0 up to 2. The level of 0 stands for the ability of speaking there are silent, seriously incorrect pronunciations. Then in the level 1 or first one there, the skills or the ability will be comprehensible, partially correct pronunciation. So when the teacher find that the students in the level of comprehensible, partially correct pronunciation, so the score level or the scale for the scoring is 1. Then number 2 or scoring scale 2 is when the students their pronunciation are acceptable. The second example of imitative speaking talks is phone pass test. Yeah. In a phone pass test, sometimes it measures both listening and speaking skills. It is emphasizing the candidate's facility, that is, the skills of accuracy, fluency, and that both of them in responding to unpredictable material constructed from common conversational vocabulary. The phone first test is focused on core linguistic structures and basic psycholinguistic ability. In a phone first task, it elicits the computer-assisted of oral productions over a telephone, so that the test takers will read aloud, repeat sentence, say words, and answer a question through a telephone. Because the works of phone-pass test is based on computer-assisted oral productions. Here, the activity in phone-pass test will be illustrated through parts. You can see there are part A, B, C, D, and E. Let me describe one by one. In phone-pass test, there will be several parts. For example, part A. In part A, the test takers read aloud selected sentence. For example, traffic is a hard problem in Southern California. The test taker will read aloud the selected sentence. Then part B, the test takers will repeat the sentence that dictated over the phone. Continue to the part C. In the part C, the test takers will answer with single word, phrase, or 3 words, more than 2 words. In part D, the test takers will hear 3 words grouped in random. Then they order to correct the sentence. The last part or part E, the test takers have 30 seconds to talk about their opinion about topic that dictate on the phone. So the activity are assisted through computer or over telephone. So the activity of the test is by using technology. The technology is a phone, yeah. So it is called phone pass test. So how about scoring scale or the scoring mechanism for pond-based test? After the test takers finish or ends their work in testing, their score will be calculated by computer. The test takers will obtain soon their achievement. Because scores in pond-based tests are calculated by computerized scoring template and reported back to the test taker within minutes. Yeah, after we know how to design assessment or how to design a task for assessing speaking in imitative assessment, in imitative speaking, so we continue to do this how to design intensive speaking tasks. In the first is direct response tasks as the sample of intensive speaking tasks. In this type of tasks, the test administrators or teacher, yeah, will elicit a particular grammatical form or a transformations of a sentence. Such tasks are clearly mechanical and not communicative, but they do require minimal processing of meaning in order to produce the correct grammatical output. You may see the sample of direct response. The test takers or students will hear some sentence such as tell me he went home, tell me that you like rock music. In this case, um, the test administrators or teachers wants to elicit a particular grammatical form or the transformations of the sentence. The another sample of designing intensive tasks is called read aloud stimulus. To make or create read aloud tasks, the test administrator or teacher in this case we need to prepare what material we use for tests. This is the example of reading aloud using paragraph. You may see the kind of paragraph there. The test takers will read aloud the paragraph while their speaking skill in imitative level should be considered to measure, and the teachers have to make a score, yeah, giving scoring scale for students in imitative in read aloud, in read aloud the paragraph. There are two criteria to measure or to make a scoring scale for reading aloud. The first is pronunciations and the second is fluency. There, the descriptions about scoring scale of pronunciations, there will be some points, yeah. The points there stands for level. You may look there. The frequent errors and unintelligible stands in the level of 0 up to 4, and occasionally unintelligible at the position level. Some errors but intelligible, occasional errors but always intelligible. The teacher should be considered to give the scoring scale for the students in reading aloud by use this criteria level in some points there. Next, the fluency. In fluency, the scoring level or the scoring scale will be considered to the students' skills in first, how their speech is so halting and fragmentary or has such a non-native flow that intelligibility is virtually impossible with the criteria, and the numerous non-native pause and or non-native flow that interferes with intelligibility, and some non-native pause but with more nearly native flow so that the pause do not interfere with intelligibility with that points. And the highest points there describe that speech is smooth and effortless, closely approximating that of native speaker. So the fluency and pronunciation should be a mechanism scoring scale for students when they have the test of reading aloud. In reading aloud, there are variations in reading aloud. There are at least two that mentioned there, reading a script dialogue, and the second one is reading information from table or chart. So when you are a teacher, you will make some reading aloud with some variations is appropriately with the source that you like to choose. Yeah, you may not just use reading aloud by using paragraph, but you can use reading aloud by using informations, or students have to reading aloud some informations from a table or chart. You will give a chart to students, and the students have to describe how the chart or table talking about. Yeah, in reading aloud activity, it has advantages. What are they? They are the first is that we can make a comparison between one student to another, and to make these comparisons are quite simple. And then the second is preparing the materials in reading aloud is simple. We can take some materials from some or several sources, and we can choose which one that's suitable for our students. And then third is the predictable due to the score criteria has been mentioned in reading aloud. There are two criteria there, pronunciations and fluency. However, in reading aloud, there will be any disadvantages. What is it? Because reading aloud is not communicative in real context. Students just read aloud a paragraph, for example. So there is no communicative aspect during the activity of the test. Another technique for targeting intensive aspect of language requires test takers or students read dialogue in which one speaker's line have been omitted. The test takers are first given time to read through the dialogue to get gist and to think about appropriate lines to fill in. Then, as TAP teacher or test administrator produce one part orally, the test takers respond. Yeah, look at the example. In the sample shown, a tag is incomplete conversations. Then the test taker or students who are given the task have to complete the blank part into the appropriate response. You may see the test taker read and hear some sentences, and the test taker have to respond with the appropriate lines. This kind of task is called dialogue completion task. Dialogue completion tasks have an advantages. The advantage is it uses more time to anticipate an answer. No potential ambiguity created by oral misunderstanding or oral interview, because the students have time to make their or to anticipate their answer. Okay, the next example is picture cute task. In a picture cute task, picture is to be a painting, drawing, or etc. And the picture that show a scan or person or thing. One of the more popular ways to elicit oral language performance is a picture cute stimulus that require a descriptions from the test takers. By this picture, the students or test taker have to describe the picture appropriately according to the sequences. Yeah, this is the kind of picture cute tasks. Overall, the scoring scale for intensive tasks are divided into three kinds of level, O, 0, 1, and 2. In 2 scale, The scale will be comprehensible, acceptable target form, and 1 point for comprehensible, partially correct target form, and 0 scale from silence or a seriously incorrect target form. Yeah, still discussing about how to design tasks in basic type of speaking. Now we continue to the responsive speaking. The first, responsive speaking requires students to respond to a spoken prompt for authenticity and briefly converse with the prompt at the limited level using standard greetings, small talk, short conversations, comments, or simple requests. Here, the sample of responsive tasks. The first is called questions eliciting open-ended response. Yeah, in questions eliciting open-ended response are concrete examples of responsive speaking assessment. This is the kind of questions that use for eliciting open-ended response for the students or test taker. The test takers here will hear some questions you may see there, and then the test takers can respond with a few sentences at most. Another responsive speaking task is giving instructions and directions. This technique is simple. The administrator or teacher poses the problem and the test takers will respond. The scoring is based primarily on comprehensibility and secondary on other specified grammatical or discourse categories. Example, the teachers ask students to give their idea how to operate an appliance, how to put a bookshelf together, and or how to create a dish, and scoring based on the level of comprehensibility and specified grammatical or discourse category. The next sample of responsive speaking is paraphrasing. Yeah, look at the sample there. There is a kind of test, paraphrasing a phone message. Yeah, the test taker will hear a phone message, and the test taker should be respond with 2 or 3 sentences, and the 2 or 3 sentences are their result of paraphrasing from the sentence at the phone message. Okay, we know that in assessing speaking, we should to make a test that the test is persuade the test taker or students to speak out. This is the test of spoken English, or we abbreviated it into TSE. TSE is a 20-minute audio tape test of oral language ability within an academic or professional environment. In TSE, scores are used by many North American institutions of higher education. The talks are designed to elicit oral productions in various discourse categories. Yeah, the scoring here, we use some scale. The first is a holistic score ranging from 20 to 60. The performance, functions, appropriateness, and coherence will be the criteria to be assessed in the TSE or test of spoken English. Here I'd like to describe about how to design interactive speaking tasks. Here, when we figure out what is interactive, yeah, the word interactive. Interactive is involving communication between people or reactions between things that work together. In this situation, the sample of interactive speaking is oral interview. Yeah. The situation can be illustrated such as the test administrator or teachers and test taker is sit down Sitting down or sit down is direct face-to-face, yeah. Exchange and process through a protocol questions and directive. It will be varies in length from 5 to 45 minutes depending on purpose and context. The placement of interview may need only 5 minutes while oral proficiency interview may require an hour. An hour. Let's see the framework for oral proficiency testing. There are at least 4 stages in framework for oral proficiency testing, such as warm-up, level check, probe, and wind down. Warm-up. In the warm-up situations, the interviewer directs mutual introductions, helps the test takers become comfortable with the situations. So, if you are a teacher who wants to take this test, you need to make your students feel comfortable first with the situations of interview, and then appraises the format and reduces anxieties. Yeah, so the students will answer their answer with comfortable situations. And then the second is level check. In level check, through pre-planned questions, the test takers respond using expected forms and function linguistic target criteria are scored. Still speaking about framework for oral proficiency testing, the last stage is wind down. In wind down situations, the interviewer encourages the test takers to relax with some easy questions, sets the test mind at ease, and provides information about when and where to obtain the results of the interview. This part is not scored, however. The another sample is role playing. In role playing is the changing of one's behavior to assume a role, either unaware to fill a social role or probably aware to act out an adaptive role. Role play is popular pedagogical activity in communicative language teaching classes. The test administrators or teacher must determine the assessment objective of the role play, then devise a scoring technique that points to objective. The example of role play. Pretend that you are a tourism asking me for direction. You are buying a necklace from me and a flea market and want a lower price. So the teacher gave these instructions for the students that the students have to make a role play for the situation that has mentioned by the teachers. Yeah. Now the sample is discussions and conversations. In this situation, this is as informal techniques to assess learners because it offers a level of authenticity and spontaneity that of other assessment techniques may not provide. In this case, it will be any activity of clarifying, questioning, paraphrasing, intonations, patterns, body language, eye contact, and other social linguistic factors. Yeah. The last, we talk about how to design extensive speaking tasks. Yeah. In extensive speaking tasks are frequently variations on monologues. Usually, it uses minimal verbal interactions. First, the sample of extensive speaking is oral presentations. In oral presentations, the activity, the example of the activity of oral presentation test such as presenting a report, a paper. Another example is about a marketing plan, sales idea, a design of a new product or a method. And the teacher probably used this kind of sample to assess the students in extensive speaking level. Look at the evaluations of oral presentations. Assign a number to each box according to your assessment of the various aspects of the speaker's presentations. The criteria or the evaluation of oral presentations described in excellent, good, fair, and poor. Excellent stands for the number 3, good stands for number 2, fair for number 1, and poor is the upper grade of this kind of evaluation. In extensive speaking, tasks also can use picture cute storytelling. Picture cute, but in this case, the picture cute is storytelling. At this level, a picture or a series of pictures is used as a stimulus for a longer story or descriptions. The objective of eliciting narrative discourse needs to be clear. For example, when you are testing for oral vocabulary, and then for time relatives, for sentence connectors, and for past tense or irregular verbs, or fluency in general. The criteria for scoring need to be clear. Yeah, the other sample of extensive speaking tasks is retelling a story. In this case, the situation is when the test takers or students hear or read a story or news event that they are asked to retell. It differs from the paraphrasing tasks discussed in the previous one. In this case, it is a longer stretch of discourse and a different genre. Yeah, because the students or the test taker just read or hear a story. This is a longer information, story or a news, and then they need to retelling the information that they have obtained from their listening a story or a news that teacher are giving to them. Yeah, in extensive speaking tasks, this is more complicated, yeah, than the first level imitative speaking. The last sample of or the another sample of extensive speaking tasks is translations. In these situations, a longer text are presented for the test taker to read in the native language and then translate into English. So this is more complicated for the students. The text can be variative, yeah, in forms of dialogue, directions, play, movie, and etc. The advantages from this activity or from this test is the control of the content, vocabulary, the grammatical, and discourse features. While disadvantages is a highly specialized skill is needed because the students should also should use their rethinking, yeah, because they need to make a translations from the original text or the original text that they have obtained into English.